Hi, I'm Alex Cologne, this is Sasha Segan, and you are watching One Cool Thing. This is PC Mag's daily show, where we show you one cool thing that we have been testing here in the lab. Today's cool thing is the Razer Phone 2. So we're going to be talking about the phone, we're going to be showing you all of its features. If you have any questions of the things that we're discussing, and you're watching this on Facebook Live, feel free to leave a comment and we'll answer it for you. If you're watching this later on YouTube, please leave comments there. And let's get to the phone. So this is, like I said, the Razer Phone 2. It's $799. Our review just went up today. We gave it 3 stars. So do you want to give just a general rundown of the phone?
Yeah, and what I find really interesting, I'll do the basic specs, but then what I find really interesting and what I want to discuss with all of you is what is a phone for? Because that's really what a phone like this ends up asking me. So the basic specs are, this is obviously a very big phone, a very powerful phone. It has a Qualcomm Snapdragon 845 at the typical 2.8 gigahertz clock speed, but it has a special cooling element in it to enable it to keep that maximum clock speed for longer than other phones, which becomes helpful in gaming, which is really what this phone is for. Now, this screen is a 1440p 120 hertz screen. And now this is something that we saw first and only on the original Razer phone. Now we're seeing it again on the Razer Phone 2. And the 120 hertz screen, it's smooth scrolling. It makes scrolling look really nice, but it is also primarily for gaming. And there are a lot of games out there that can take advantage of frame rates higher than 60 to provide smoother functionality and less lag. Now we have powerful dual front-facing speakers on here. The front-facing speakers are terrific. Great audio out of this phone.
Yeah, so just to point out, it looks like you're getting a ton of bezel, but those are just big speakers.
Yeah, exactly. It's bezel, but it's speaker bezel.
Yeah.
So it's massive and powerful. The fingerprint scanners in the power button on the side, that is a leftover from the NextBit phones.
Right.
And most of NextBit's team works for Razer now, so you have a kind of, one has transferred to the other. You'll notice no headphone jack. It is USB-C. That's something that we're seeing more and more. I mean, the Pixels do it.
And it does come with a dongle. You can also use USB-C headphones if you want, or wireless.
Exactly. Now on the back, we have our dual 12 megapixel cameras. One of them is 2x. And we have our color-changing Razer logo. And the color-changing Razer logo can be customized. It can be customized to do a single color, to do changing colors, or to light up in the color of an app that is giving you notifications, which I think is a really fun sort of reinvention of the notification LED.
Yeah, I mean, that's like actually useful.
Yeah, it is. It is. So let me load up a game here.
So I have a quick question about games. So you're saying that there are certain games that could take advantage of the faster screen response time. Now, do you just have to sort through Google Play to try to find these games somehow, or is there an easy way to know where they're coming from?
To some extent. To some extent, you do have to look. Now, Razer has an app called the Razer Cortex, which acts as your control center for games. And in the Razer Cortex, there is the Game Booster. And the Game Booster can take a look at the games that you have on your phone and customize them and offer customized settings for maximum performance in those games.
Right.
And you can also tweak the individual games to, for instance, if you're playing PUBG, you can turn down the screen resolution and turn the frame rate way up, as you would on a PC, to speed up performance in those games.
Got it.
So, yeah, I'll just load up a game here. I'll load up Asphalt 8, which is a game that we play on all phones. And one thing, it needs to load even more. It needs to load even more background data. So let's try a different game.
But just to for the audience, so that is one of the games that we always test with because it's a high-end game. It shows how phones can handle, games that have those sort of.
But it also runs on a wide range of phones.
Right.
It doesn't completely die on mid-range or high mid-range phones. So now I'm loading Real Racing 3 here.
And while you're getting that loaded, it looks like we have a question.
So we saw before the show that it can stand up on its own vertically. Can it do it horizontally too? If you're playing and like you wanted to use like a different controller?
Yeah, I mean the edges are totally flat.
Yep. Well, no, so one edge has the volume buttons on it, so that is not flat, but the edge with the power button fingerprint sensor is flat, and the top and bottom are flat, so it can stand up. So for gaming, swipe to get started. Come on, there we go. And I'm tapping, and I just want to get something animating here. By And so now it's safe to say that for gaming, this is the best phone that we've seen so far. And although we haven't reviewed the Asus ROG phone,
Right.
And that would be the other big gaming phone. That would be the other top competitor. So why did we only rate this 3 stars? Because as we found with the original Razer phone, some of the basic things you expect from a phone, such as camera and battery life, fall short on this phone. And that really gets to a question of, what do you want a phone for? Do you want a phone because you are playing real racing at 120 hertz and it's awesome? Or do you want a phone to take really good photos in low light? In which case, you need to get a Pixel, because this phone does not take good photos in low light. And that is its big problem. Also, we found in our battery test, which streams a video with the screen on full brightness, and we tried this on different refresh rate settings for the screen. It is very difficult to do this kind of at an angle while talking, but I'm obviously not a game streamer. We got around 4 hours of streaming battery life on this phone. And this is really surprising because it has this gigantic battery in it. I believe the battery is something like 4,000. Let me check that. Let me check that in the review itself. But the battery life on this phone was just not very good.
Right, and so the new Galaxy Note, for instance, got over 12 hours in our test.
Yep.
So, I mean, more than 3 times the amount of battery life that we saw here. And again, as Sasha said, we did test the phone twice, because when we see a battery result of 4 hours, that's just not something that we're seeing often nowadays. So, that makes us think, the test could always fail, but we tested it again and basically got the same thing.
And I mean, there's a couple of other little things, like it's running Android 8.1 because Razer had to make some major changes to the basic firmware of the phone to enable things like the 120 hertz screen.
Right.
And it's really heavily skinned because Razer does that. I mean, they skin their laptops, basically. So all of these things say that it's a phone that is very designed for its purpose. But that purpose isn't necessarily what the vast majority of people want their high-end smartphones for. And the high-end smartphones which we recommend more highly, like the Pixel 3, like the Note 9, also play games very well. Right. And do the basic functions better.
Yeah. Let's just take a question.
So you said 4 hours of streaming battery life. I guess around what would our favorite phablets get, do you think?
Well, the Galaxy Note got over 12 hours.
Yes, the Galaxy Note got over 12 hours. We've been seeing 10 to 12 hours in other large devices. The iPhones tend to be shorter. They tend to be around 6. The iPhone XS 10s Max, I think is more talking around 6. It's more if you turn the screen brightness down. But in any case, what we were seeing was that especially if you're pumping this phone, especially if you're doing things like playing the games that this phone is designed to play, you don't end up with the battery life that you expect in a device this big and heavy. And now let's also talk about the size and shape here, because this is an extraordinarily big, heavy phone. Now, I say that, and I'm holding this in my hand, and I'm like, oh, it's not that big and heavy, because the other day I went to an event for the launch of the Red Hydrogen 1 on AT&T, which is basically a Halliburton suitcase as a phone. So compared to that, this is not that big and heavy, but compared to every other phone on the market, it absolutely is.
Well, it's an ounce heavier than the Galaxy Note.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like, are we comparing this to the Galaxy Note? Are we comparing this to the iPhone XS? Are we comparing this to the Pixel 3 XL? Because if we are, those phones are all lighter. Those phones all have longer battery life.
Right.
Those phones all have better cameras. This phone has that 120 hertz screen for playing Fortnite and PUBG in a way that transcends those other devices.
Now, I also find the cooling system interesting. So we do benchmark all the phones that we test. And just on a pure benchmark level, this did benchmark very similarly to the Pixel 3, for instance.
Yes.
So what exactly does the cooling system mean?
So the cooling system means that, so there's something that doesn't show up in standard benchmarks and doesn't show up in benchmark numbers. And that is performance as you're slamming the phone over a considerable period of time.
Right.
I don't know any phone, any widely used phone benchmarks that last longer than about 10 minutes. So the cooling system is designed to let the phone operate at maximum speed for longer periods of time. For instance, if you're trying to play PUBG at 120 hertz.
Right.
You know, if you're trying to play Real Racing for an hour. And so we did find that this phone, when we measured the temperature, over time with games, or slamming it with high-end games with multiple benchmarks, it stayed cooler than other competing phones.
Yeah, other phones that we test will literally become hot as you're using them for an extended period of time.
And this stays cooler, and that means that it can push the higher frame rates and the higher processor speeds for longer. But once again, is this a niche case? You know, are people using this phone as their primary gaming system, or did those people just go buy a Switch?
Right.
Yeah.
There's that too.
Yeah.
Because again, it's an $800 phone, so it's in the same price range as these other phablets that sort of do more overall than you're getting here.
Or they do more. Here's what I'm struggling with this week, and I'm going to be struggling with this question all week. And it's really around what are the most important things that a high-end smartphone does. And this one calls out and says games. It plays not just little games, not just Candy Crush or Alpha Bears or the games that could play very well on your Moto G6.
Right.
You know, this plays boundary-pushing, high-end games for hours on end. And is that a really important use case? Is that something that you want to recommend broadly to a broad audience? With the Red Hydrogen 1, just to give an example of another unique phone, you know, that one has its 3D screen. Is that a broad use case?
Right.
Versus something like the Galaxy Note or the Pixel 3 XL, where they have a better camera and longer battery life.
Right.
Do they sell accessories for this, Razer specifically, to really like lean into the gaming experience? Because I know that they had like that proof of concept of that laptop shell.
Yeah, I haven't seen that become real. So I don't know about accessories. I don't know about accessories. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there might be some on the way. We'll check later and put it in the comments.
Yep. So okay, so here I'm gonna call up another game here. Let's call up. What can I actually play? Let's call up Riptide.
Should really pump those speakers too.
Yeah, let's do that. Oh, wrong direction. And so now one thing you notice about this game, about this phone, about the frame rates, is that one thing I've noticed on phones over the years is that you can really tell the quality of a phone's gaming abilities in how sensitive the tilt controls are.
Okay.
Because there's something about the connection between the accelerometer that handles the tilt controls and the game itself that really proves a phone. And you can find poorly calibrated phones or phones that aren't powerful enough. The tilt controls will just feel off, or they'll oversteer, or they'll have lag. And one thing about the Razer phone is that these controls are gorgeous. They do exactly what you want them to do at exactly the time you want them to do it, and it's terrific. And like you notice these water effects across the screen. Now this is, this is really showing the full capability and the full graphics capabilities of that Snapdragon 845. It is a pity that it has such trouble taking photos in low light, for instance. Let's take another question.
Does this replace the previous phone? Like, can you get the previous phone now?
This replaces the previous Razer phone, yes. And there is nothing about the previous Razer phone that is better than this one. This is better than the previous Razer phone, and it replaces it. So if you were interested in, I mean, our summary is, so we rated it 3 stars because it's a niche product. If you are primarily interested in gaming, if you are willing to give up low light camera performance for that, then yeah, you're gonna have a great time with this. The sound is terrific, the graphics are terrific, it runs mainstream games gorgeously. You will probably have to bring a spare battery with you most of the time.
Right.
Yeah, it's like a gaming laptop in that way.
Yeah, and I imagine actually if you're gaming, you might not even get the full 4 hours.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Yeah.
All right, so this is, just to summarize, this is the Razer Phone 2. It's $799. We gave it 3 stars. If you are primarily interested in gaming, it is worth a look. If not, you should probably go with a more general purpose phablet, like the Galaxy Note. If you want more info on it, we have the review up on PCMag.com, and we'll be back again tomorrow to show you a new product. So thanks for tuning in.